my channel and to today's video. I hope you're all okay. So today's video is going to be all about everything that I've been sewing and knitting in March. So I'm really pleased to say that I managed to get all of my sewing plans finished. So I did share a fabric haul video recently and some plans I had for the month, a couple of things that I needed to get made before the end of the month. And I also had a couple of knitting projects that I managed to finish up as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to share them with you today. So if you're new to my channel is all about sewing and knitting and crafting and making and things like that. Fabric hauls, sew-alongs, sewing plans, what I've been making, everything to do with sewing really. If you are new and you haven't yet subscribed, I'd love you to consider subscribing, and if you are a regular viewer, thank you so much for joining me again today. So I'm just going to start off in typical British fashion and talk about the weather for a minute, because it's the 31st of March today and the weather has just been so weird so far. So this morning we woke up to a massive snowstorm. So we haven't had any snow or really even any ice over the winter here. I live in the sort of southeast of England. And we haven't had any snow or ice really. So it's been quite a mild winter, but yeah, going into almost April, we had a massive snowstorm this morning, which caused a lot of excitement with the children and everything. But I just wanted to mention it quickly because the light is just really weird. It keeps going so dark and then snowing and sleeting and hailing, and then the next minute the sun will come out. So if the light is a bit weird in this video today, I do apologise. But anyway, with all that said, I will get on to everything that I've been sewing and knitting in March. So I'll start with sewing as always, and I'll leave knitting until the end, and I won't talk about what I'm wearing just yet because you might be able to guess that what I'm wearing is actually one of my finished projects. So I will be talking about that near the end. So the first set of things that I managed to get finished in March was my pair of Juno pyjamas. So here they are in this really lovely cotton jersey that I managed to get from Minerva in the sale, which I was really pleased with. It's such a lovely cotton jersey and it's really pretty. It has this lovely sort of wooden print all over it. There's some butterflies and flowers and things in there, and yeah, it's right up my street. So I really wanted to make a pair of sort of longer length pyjamas that I could just use for loungewear in the evenings and when it gets a bit chilly. And I've wanted to make the Juno pyjamas for so long, so I was really pleased to get these sewn up. So I'm sure lots of you will have seen and probably made up the Juno pyjamas before, but it's a pattern that's included in the Tilly and the Buttons Make It Simple book. I absolutely love this book, as you'll know if you've watched my videos before. And these are the Juno pyjamas. So they're a really simple pyjama set, jersey bottoms with an elasticated waist, and then there are cuffs at the ankles, and then a really simple long sleeve t-shirt top, which you can obviously make short sleeve if you prefer. The top includes cuffs at the wrists as well and a neckband. So yeah, just a super simple, easy jersey set of pyjamas. I've actually made a shorts version of these pyjamas before, but I hadn't made the long length version, so it was really nice to give these a go. So this is the top of the pyjamas. So as you can see, I've just made it with a long sleeve and then the wrist cuffs. So in my fabric haul video, I did say that I was considering using a ribbing for the cuffs and the neckband, which was a kind of contrast colour to some of the colours in this fabric. But in the end, I decided to just go with the main fabric for the cuffs and neckband. And that was because the ribbing that I had was slightly heavier weight than this cotton jersey, and I just thought it would be a bit too thick really to use for the cuffs this time. So I left that off and I just used the main fabric, and that worked fine. So the top is made from the Tabitha t-shirt pattern, which I had already actually traced off and everything and completely forgot about, and ended up tracing off again as part of making these pyjamas. So you make the top up in the normal way that you would make a normal t-shirt as part of the Tabitha instructions they're given in the book, but you actually make the sleeves 3/4 and then you add on these wristbands which are quite high. So yeah, really super simple, speedy top, a lovely quick and easy sew. And then these are the bottoms. So I hadn't made the trouser bottoms before. As I said, I just made the shorts, so I needed to trace off the pattern again just to give me the trouser length pattern. I didn't make any changes to the length of the trousers. I just wanted to see how they turned out as they were. I've actually made the Stella joggers from the stretch book by Tilly and the Buttons, and going off that length, those are actually perfect on me, so I didn't bother to alter the length or anything this time. I just wanted to see how they turned out. and the length is actually fine, and I'm 5'3", so yeah, a really good, nice length. If you are any taller than me, then you might want to lengthen the pattern slightly, but on me they were fine, especially for pyjamas when it doesn't really sort of matter too much. They're just so comfy and cozy, and I can't believe I haven't made this pattern up before, because it was really quick and easy, quick to cut out once the pattern's all traced and everything. And then I think I sewed these up pretty much in a morning, so 2 to 3 hours sewing, maybe even less if you're speedier than me. This fabric was absolutely lovely. It did curl a little bit at the edges when cutting, like cotton jersey can do sometimes, but I pinned it all out and everything, and yeah, it was fine. It was really lovely to sew. So yeah, highly recommend that fabric as well. I'm really pleased that I finally managed to get a pair of Juno pyjamas made. So another super speedy jersey make that I managed to get sewn up this month was another pair of Hudson Pants. So these are just a standard pair of Hudson Pants. This is the second pair I've made of this pattern now, and I do absolutely love it. It comes together so nicely and so quickly really as well, and there are just a few nice little details on these really. Just like the, there's a bit of binding there, if you can see, around the pocket, which is a really nice detail, and I think that would be really nice to do in a contrasting colour maybe. If I ever make another pair, I might try and make that in a contrasting colour so it stands out a little bit. So this is the Hudson Pants pattern. I will just pop in an image as well, because I've noticed that recently in the videos sometimes the camera's not focusing very well on the patterns, and I think it's just the light. But if you can see that, this is the Hudson Pants pattern by True Bias, and it is one of those patterns that it just took me ages to get around to trying, even though I'd loved everyone else's versions that I'd seen. It's just a great sort of jogging bottoms pattern. A couple of people have asked me actually which pattern I prefer out of the Stella joggers or the Hudson Pants. I actually prefer the Hudson Pants out of the two, and that's just because I really like the sort of tapered leg, the sort of skinnier leg of this pair of joggers. I just feel like they suit me better, and I think they look that little bit sort of more dressy. You could wear them out and about and things, and they'd sort of feel a little bit more dressy, if you know what I mean. So I think out of the two, I do prefer the Hudson Pants. But yeah, it's nice to have both of them and both options. So this actually comes as a full leg pair of pants or pair of trousers, or you can make a 3/4 length pair. I'm definitely going to think about making the 3/4 length pair for the summertime, I think, because I think that would be really nice to have as well. And I know quite a few people have made these up in a lighter weight jersey for pyjamas as well, and I think that's a really good idea. This time I've used a fleece back sweatshirting fabric from Minerva. It's quite a stretchy sweatshirting fabric, but it is really lovely and it feels lovely quality. It was really nice to cut out and really nice to sew with and everything, and it feels super comfy and cozy on. And this colour was petrol, and I really like it. It's a sort of bluey dark green colour. So again, I just made them up as they were lengthwise. I didn't alter them or anything. And you might remember when I spoke about the Hudson Pants recently, I did think I'd need to alter them for my first pair, and I didn't. They were actually the perfect length. Funnily enough, in one of those strange sewing things that seem to happen now and again, these ones have turned out slightly longer than my first version. So they are a little bit long, these ones. I'm not too fussy about the length on them, because I think, well, they're just for loungewear. And actually sometimes it's a little bit nice to have a bit more length there, because I think when you're sitting down and everything, sometimes they can kind of ride up, and these ones don't, because they're that little bit longer. So it depends how fussy you are with the length really. I don't know why these ones turned out a little bit more longer than my other ones. Maybe it was the seam allowance that I took at the cuff or something like that. I think maybe next time I make these, I might just take a centimetre off of the cuff, because the cuffs are quite high, so there's definitely sort of room to manoeuvre there with the sizing of the cuff and everything. So I'll have a think about that for next time. But yeah, I'm super happy with these. Really soft and comfy and cozy. They're just another great one for loungewear. Lots of pyjamas and loungewear actually this month. That's definitely the theme I was going for. Next, a slightly more involved make. I managed to get my Carolyn pyjamas finished finally. I'm so pleased that I finally managed to get these done. Honestly, this fabric has been hanging around in my fabric stash for ages. And it was a Minerva brand ambassador make, which I knew I needed to get done. I just knew I needed to set aside enough time and sort of headspace to get on with this pattern, because it is a bit of a beast. It's a really nice one to sew up, but it does take that bit more thought and time, I think. So I just needed to set aside a couple of days where I could just sew and get it done and enjoy the process. So this is the Carolyn Pyjamas pattern. I'm sure you've probably all seen it before. I absolutely love the style of these pyjamas. They've got a sort of a vintage feel. So they're a traditional shirt style pyjama pattern, and you can either make them with shorts, and I've made two versions previously of the shorts set with the short sleeves and then shorts bottoms. And you can also make it as a sort of full length sleeve and a full length trouser bottom. So this time I wanted to make the short sleeve shirts, but I wanted to make the trousers pattern, but I wanted to make them 3/4 length. So that's what I've done this time. So these are the trousers. I made them 3/4 length, as I say, and the way I did that was I traced off, actually I didn't trace off, I cut straight into my paper pattern, because the lines of the Carolyn pattern are really, it's on that sort of thin pattern paper, and it was really hard to see the lines to trace, so in the end I just thought I'm just going to cut straight into the pattern, and I made a size 2 in both top and bottom. So I traced off the trouser pattern, and then I measured my pair of sapphire culottes. I measured the inside leg of that pair of trousers because they're 3/4 length, and I really like the length of those on me. So yeah, I measured the inside leg of those and decided that that's where I wanted the bottom of my pyjama bottoms to fall, the sort of mid-calf length. And then I had a look on the pattern just to check the finished length of the trousers, which is super long. So I'm 5'3", just to mention that again. And the trouser pattern must be drafted for like a 5'7", 5'8" person. So quite a bit taller than me. So I did need to take quite a bit out of the leg length to shorten the pattern piece. So if you think about this pattern piece, you've got the sort of the main leg piece, and then you've got the separate cuff at the bottom here that you need to attach. So to work out the amount that I needed to shorten the leg, I needed to take off the length or the height of the cuff, and then take off the amount that I needed to shorten the leg length by to shorten my actual leg, and then attach the cuff to the bottom, if any of that makes sense. Hopefully you'll know what I mean. So in the end I needed to shorten my actual leg piece by 15 centimetres. That seems to be the standard amount that I need to shorten things by, actually, 15 centimetres. I seem to go on that measurement quite a lot. So yeah, I took 15 centimetres out of the main leg piece of the pattern, and then obviously had to add on the cuff length as well, and just make sure that that took me to the approximate length of where my sapphire trousers fall. I can't actually remember what that measurement was off the top of my head, but it was about mid-calf on me. So yeah, that took a little bit of calculation, and funnily enough, that's what was putting me off of getting on with this pattern, actually, because I'm terrible when I know that I need to alter something. I find altering things quite hard. I don't have a mathematical brain at all, which is often why I just go by eye rather than trying to work things out properly. So it does put me off a bit if I know that I need to work out things like that. But anyway, I got there in the end, and the length is actually perfect, and I'm so pleased with this leg length, and I think I can see many more pyjama bottoms being made from this pattern, because it's just such a comfy and nice length to wear, and I prefer wearing 3/4 length things, especially for bed and nightwear and things like that, than I do full length things. So yeah, I'm really happy that I managed to make that change. So the pyjama bottoms are really nice. They've just got an elasticated waist, and then there's some pockets here, which you probably can't see because the fabric's quite busy. But just some sort of, what do you call this? Like not an inseam pocket, but I don't know. It's a pocket, pocket detail. It's not an inseam pocket or a side pocket. It's just a pocket. So yes, and obviously I've gone for the cuff bottom, and I've added the piping as well, which is such a lovely detail. The piping always feels like a labour of love, and it's a bit of a faff when you do it, because it does add on quite a lot to the time, and you have to take your time and everything. But it's so worth it. I just think it really brings out the colour in your fabric, and you can go for a contrast piping and it just looks really lovely. So I'm really glad that I went for that piping and took the extra effort to put that in. So So those are my bottoms, and then this is the top. I haven't mentioned the fabric. This is a lovely brushed cotton fabric by Robert Kaufman. I got it from Minerva, as I said, as a brand ambassador project, so it was given to me in exchange for a review. So yeah, I've just made the standard short sleeve shirt, little patch pocket here, which is also piped at the top, and then the collar on this is just so lovely. It's a flat collar, it's really nice to sew. It does recommend that you interface the collar and the neckline and everything, but I didn't do that again this time. I'm not a massive fan of interfacing where it's not necessary, and I think especially for nightwear, I just didn't want to add any stiffness or any uncomfortableness or anything to you know, wearing this at night. So I left off the interfacing because I think this cotton is stable enough as it is, and it just makes everything a little bit more softer. Obviously that's personal preference. You do need to put in buttonholes here, so if you feel like your fabric is not stable enough without interfacing, then definitely go ahead and add that. But this brushed cotton was actually quite thick and stable on its own, so I thought I'd be fine without it. And then I've just piped all around the collar and attached piping to the sleeve cuffs as well. I did actually find attaching the piping a little bit easier this time. I think this is the third time now that I've made a piped pair of Carolyn Pyjamas, and at first I found it really fiddly. But I think it's one of those things, the more you do it, the more you sort of get a feel for it, and I felt much more confident doing it this time, and I think it's probably a bit neater than my first couple of versions, so that's good. If you're interested to read my write-up that I've done for Minerva, then I'll link it down below, and just list all of the details of the alterations that I made and everything for this pair. But yeah, I'm really pleased with those. And after my two jersey makes, the Hudsons and the Juno Pyjamas, it was really nice to have something to sew that was sort of more involved. I made these on a really rainy day, and it was just so nice to sort of switch off and be cozy at home and just focus on getting these sewn. So lastly, in sewing makes, I made my other version of the Logan Shacket. So this one I have filmed as a sew along, so this is the one that I won't talk too much about because all of the details on the sewing process and everything are all in my sew along video, which I'll link below. But basically, yeah, there's another version of the Logan Shacket. I've made it in exactly the same way as I did my first one, but this time I've used an acrylic blend coating fabric, so it's just that little bit more warm, and it's one that I'm hoping to use as outerwear for sort of transition time between winter and spring, and I think it will be really good for that. I'm really pleased with this. This fabric was a real cheapie. It's quite a man-made sort of fibre, so that's why it's cheaper. It is an acrylic polyester blend, and it was lovely to sew with, other than that it did stick to the iron a little bit. So I did need to sort of press everything with a pressing cloth. That was the only possible bad thing about it, but other than that it's really nice, and I like the plaid pattern on this, and there's a little sort of gold fleck running through it as well, which I think is really nice. So yeah, all of the changes that I made, I did make quite a few alterations on this, and I shortened quite a lot of it. So all of those details will be in the sew along video, which I'll link below. Another change I made this time was just to cut the yoke on the bias so that you get that sort of, you know, the diagonally plaid texture or pattern to the fabric rather than just on the straight grain, which I think is really nice, and I'm glad that I did that this time. So yeah, a really enjoyable sew. I love sewing up the Logan Shacket. It's just a really nice one. And I do mention in my sew along video that I don't think I'm quite done with this pattern yet. I'd really like to make another one. And I'm a bit sort of on the quilted jacket trend at the moment, and I'm really thinking that I'd quite like a quilted jacket. So yeah, we'll see if that happens or not. But something for the future maybe. So that's all of my sewing makes. So on to knitting makes. So as I said, I've managed to get 2 knitting makes sewn up this month and finished, or knitted up this month I should say, and finished. And the first one is what I'm wearing, and that is the Cara sweater by We Are Knitters. So this is a kit by We Are Knitters. I was kindly given it as part of a collaboration that I did with them before Christmas. And it's a really lovely kit. I so enjoyed knitting this one up. I'll pop in an image of me wearing it so you can see it properly as well, but I'll just stand up and show you. I've kind of got it in my usual kind of half tuck, but it comes down just to kind of hip length. There's the hem there. But the photos hopefully will show you where everything finishes and what it looks like properly on. So yeah, this is a really lovely, easy knit. So for some reason this kit is marked as intermediate. I'm not really sure why, because the lines on this are so simple. So basically the back is just a rectangle of a few rows of single rib knit, and then just garter stitch. So it's really a lovely one that you can just sit and do quite mindfully. It's a great one for beginners, I think. And the only difficulty I guess you might run into if you're a complete beginner is just where you need to separate for the neckline. But really that's quite easy really anyway. You just kind of you knit halfway into the middle, and then you kind of put these on a stitch holder, and then you turn and you knit up one side, and then you pick up your stitches and then you knit up this side. So it is quite simple really, and I would recommend it for a beginner, I think. And it's great for one that if you are a kind of more advanced knitter, you can just sit there and do it quite easily in the evening. So I'm really pleased with this one. So this is the wool that the kit uses. It's called the wave wool, and it's quite a chunky yarn or wool. So you knit it up on quite large needles, on 8mm needles, which is why it knits up so quickly. And because of the texture of the wool, it goes from thin to thick, so you get this really lovely sort of bobbly nature to the knitting, to the fabric that you're knitting, and it just sort of adds a bit of interest to the plain garter stitch knit, I think. So yeah, I'm really pleased to have this one knitted up and in my wardrobe, and it's so warm. It's probably going to be a bit warm for the coming months actually, so it'd be a really nice one to have for next winter and sort of autumn time. So the other thing I managed to get knitted and finished was a kit that I had for Christmas, and this one was the Toucan Snood and Warmers by We Are Knitters again. And I actually had this one for Christmas. So I was having a look at We Are Knitters kits for my Christmas list basically, and came across this one, and I just really loved the pattern on it. So if I hold it up to the camera, you can see it's got a leaf knit design on it. I want to call this lace, but I don't think it is lace really. It's just a leaf pattern. So I was really taken by this pattern, and I really wanted to sort of advance my knitting skills a little bit and try out more lace designs and lace patterns, because I do really enjoy knitting lace. So I want to be a bit more braver at knitting lace garments and things like that. So I thought this would be a really good one to try out quite a complicated pattern on, because it's just a snood, it's not a garment, and any mistakes or anything that you make probably wouldn't show up quite as much as if you made them on a garment that you were going to wear. So I thought that would be a really good one to try, and actually the pattern was really nice to knit. It was quite an involved one, so I think it was on a 20 row repeat, so I did have to keep my eye on the pattern all the time. But once you sort of get the hang of what you're doing, you know the stitches and you know what you're supposed to be knitting next, so it wasn't too difficult. And I just found it really lovely, and I was knitting it alongside this one, so it was really nice to alternate between the two. And if I felt like doing something a bit more involved, I would pick this one up, and if I wanted to just sit in front of the telly and knit, then I would knit this one in garter stitch, and it was really nice to swap between the two. Normally I'm like just a single project knitter. I only tend to have one thing on the go because that's all I can get my head around. But actually, yeah, it was really nice to sort of swap between the two. So that's the snood. So it's just quite a thin snood really. It's more like a little collar, and I think this will actually be quite handy for springtime, just when it's still a bit chilly. And you can just pop it on, probably with something like this actually, with a V-neck would be really nice. So that's the snood. And then you also knit up these two little hand warmers as well, which are basically the beauty of this project really, is that even though the lace pattern is quite involved, you're only knitting rectangles. So the snood is just a long rectangle, and the mittens or the warmers or whatever are also just small rectangles, so there's no shaping to do or anything like that. So these are just rectangles, and then they're sewn up at the back, and then you just leave a gap for the thumb. I'll just put one on to show you what it looks like. So this is what they look like on, and I just think they look really nice actually. So I think again that these will be really good for springtime when it's still a little bit chilly. Because I walk the dog quite a lot, I often need to have my hands free, and sometimes gloves can be a bit of a faff. So it'd be really nice to have my fingers free in these, and yeah, really pleased with those. The wool is lovely. It's knit on 5mm needles, so it feels as though you're using bigger needles than you should be, if that makes sense. But I think that just gives a really nice sort of looser texture to the knit. And I just wanted to mention as well that I've been on a bit of a journey with blocking knitting. So I've begun to realise what a difference blocking does actually make to your knitting. And for Christmas as well, I had a blocking kit, which basically is a jigsaw of lots of foam boards that you jigsaw together in the kind of shape you need. And then you can pin out your knitting on that, and you either soak block it, or the way I've been doing things actually is just to get a bottle of water, put some hand wash detergent in it, and then pin all my knitting out to the size that I need it to be based on the pattern directions. And then I give it a really good soaking, a really good spray until it's completely soaked really, while it's all pinned out, and just let it completely dry. And with this pattern, I was so pleased with the result once it was blocked, because this was all kind of bunched in after I'd finished knitting it, and once it was blocked out, it just laid so sort of beautifully soft and smooth, and it was really drapey, and the lace or the pattern was really opened out and everything. So yeah, I'm really pleased that I'm being a bit braver with blocking things now, because I think it does make a difference. So yeah, those are my 2 knitting projects that I managed to get finished, and yeah, I'm super pleased with those. And I have started something new now, and I'll be sharing that in my next video, which will be a fabric haul and plans video. So stay tuned for that one, and I'll be sharing what I'll be knitting next. So I think that's everything. I've shared everything that I've been making in March. I hope you like what I've made. I'm really pleased that I managed to get all of those things done actually. It felt like quite a productive month, and I feel like I've had loads to share, but some of them were just things that I was finishing up with my knitting projects and things, and 2 of the sewing projects were obviously speedy ones with the jersey project. So yeah, super pleased with what I managed to get done in March. Let me know in the comments what you've been making. I know lots of people have been making So Frugal items for the So Frugal challenge over on Instagram. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to take part this year because I've just had so much other things going on. But it's been really nice to see everyone else's make. So let me know in the comments what you've been making. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd love you to consider subscribing. I think next week I'll be sharing a fabric haul and plans video for April and onwards. So take care everyone, and have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.